What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in to cover this week's TWID from Bungie. So, of course, they recap some of the stuff that we got this week from the live reveal, so they do speak again about some of the armor system changes, archetypes, set bonuses, and more. We'll recap a couple of items there, but otherwise there's also additional ability tuning that we'll see. Bungie also speak about the new rewards pass, some changes they're making there, and preview a couple of rewards, and tease some of the stuff that they'll speak about in their next live reveal, which will once again contain more information about Edge of Fate specifically, or the campaign on Kepler. So a few things to cover today. If you guys enjoy the video, a rating really does help us out. Otherwise, let's get into it. They firstly say this week the live reveal was about Armor 3.0, Gear Tiers, and Sandbox, but next week they'll chat a bit more about Kepler and what's coming in Edge of Fate. So July 1st at 10 AM Pacific is when we'll get the second stream, and they're planning to give us a glimpse of the campaign, crank up the difficulty with the new world tier system, and let us see all of this and how the other new Sandbox changes come together. They'll also talk about power, progression, the portal, guardian ranks, and quality of life changes, so that bit's good. I gotta say I'm mostly pleased that they're gonna talk a bit more about Edge of Fate. That's something that most players are very curious about, so we'll see how the destination plays into all of that. They also say everyone watching the dev stream next week for 15 minutes will earn the Observer Effect emblem as a Twitch drop, so that's a preview of that one. Works the same way as it did this time around, and as always we'll be there to recap whatever they do show next week. Next up though, they touch on Armor 3.0 once again. There are quite a few recaps of things which were spoken about on the live reveal, but for set bonuses, they say think of them like an origin trait for armor. Set bonuses are perks granted when you equip 2 or 4 pieces of armor from the same set. So they highlight the Aeon Renewal set. This has been shown previously, but the 2-piece perk will be Force Converter, and after a final blow with missiles, rocket launchers, and grenade launchers, we can sprint for a short time to gain a speed boost. Then when you have 4 pieces equipped, you get Reactive Booster, and once per activation of Anomalous Servos, sprinting while at critical health, being suspended or slowed by a stasis effect will immediately grant Speed Booster for a short duration. So they do sound pretty cool. Obviously, they'll be put in combination with all of the other perks, mods, abilities, and stuff that we're kind of already used to. The other set bonus is TechSec, and that includes Wrecker, where you deal significantly increased kinetic damage to overshields, combatant shields, and constructs. That's the 2-piece perk. Then for 4 pieces, it has concussive rounds, and defeating powerful combatants or breaking a combatant's shield with a kinetic damage releases a disorienting kinetic shockwave. So those sound pretty cool. I'm sure as well there are going to be others, as obviously Bungie did say that they're going to add set bonuses to pretty much all of the armor they introduce. We will have additional things like the raid armor. And I wonder if they'll put set bonuses on other armor types that we might get in the future, from events and things like that, presumably trials, maybe even Iron Banner. Otherwise though, they highlight that stat archetypes will exist for armor, so Paragon will contain primarily Super and Melee as a secondary stat, Grenadier is primarily Grenade with Super as a secondary, and then Specialist is Class primary with Weapons as secondary, Brawler as Melee primary and Health secondary, Bulwark is Health primary and Class secondary, and then Gunner is Weapons primary and Grenade secondary. So these will help to identify what these stat allocations are leaning towards for a certain piece of gear. They also speak about masterworking, and they've updated the masterworking system for any Armor 3.0 drops. So all drops will have their maximum armor energy available regardless of the masterwork level. Masterworking armor no longer increases all stats, but the amount granted by the primary, secondary, and tertiary stats rolled will not change with the exception of for armor mods. And finally, masterworking now increases your lowest 3 stats on that piece of armor by +1 with each level. So this has a maximum effect of +5 in each, or +15 stats in total. They reiterate in the TWID how gear tiers will affect the potential total stats of armor, so you can see the chart on screen right there, with the primary stats being listed first and then the masterworked stat in brackets. We won't list them all as we have spoken about them before. They do touch on the new gear component in the TWID once again. This is one where there's been a lot of discourse in the past few days, safe to say, but they highlight there'll be an exclusive PvP playlist where players must use new gear to face off against each other, with the intention being to create a more even playing field for newer players to test out builds. And the fact that new gear will include a 10% bonus for weapon damage and a 15% bonus for damage resistance on armor, but those bonuses will not apply to PvP or contest mode in the upcoming raid. So if anything, that makes our existing gear right now potentially even more appealing, depending on how the stats and things work out once we get into Edge of Fate. bait, obviously only in that first week or so. Otherwise, they don't really discuss the new gear bonus further. They do say though, for exotic class items, they will be the only armor from before Edge of Fate that will be converted fully into the new system. So each one will receive the maximum stats available for an exotic, 30 in the primary stat and 20 in the secondary, with 13 in the tertiary stat. And to prevent this from massively increasing the number of possible class item rolls, these stats will be assigned based on their rolled perks. So the archetype will be determined by the left column perk, and the tertiary stat will be in the right column perk. However, this does mean that they can no longer be upgraded to Artifice Armor and will lose any existing Artifice Armor mod slot. I'm sure equally players will be thrilled about that, but we can see from the examples here how those perks and stats lay out in game. Moving on, there's another element here. They talk about gear swapping and the specific change that they missed last week. And they talk about Guardians leveraging the strategy mid-combat of changing exotics. Of course, that happens with things like Sanguine Alchemy, and Bungie say we've found that this presents a balance issue where it feels mandatory, and we feel that the main draw of the exotic should be centered around its perks and not the swap-centric strategy. So for Sanguine Alchemy specifically, swap into this exotic in combat will now apply a 10-second cooldown before its perk can be activated. Also in the TWID, there's a full list of all of the exotic gear, which will be added to the new gear featured category, meaning that it will essentially get the bonuses from the artifact that Bungie referred to. You can see part of that chart on screen. I'm not going to read it out on an individual basis. We did cover quite a few of these following Bungie's recap the other day, but it's in the TWID and I'll link that down below. Otherwise, they speak about specific tune-ins. So they say, we spoke about prismatic changes a few weeks ago. To summarize though, prismatic has been a bit too hot since launch from Bungie's perspective. So on Prismatic, they're reducing the number of fragment slots provided by the following aspects. Helion goes from 3 to 2, and Bleak Watcher goes from 3 to 2 as well. With Prismatic and Strand, Weaver's Call now being able to generate threadlings on any final blow instead of just Strand final blows. Then for Void, Pocket Singularity, they're increasing the damage versus non-bosses by 20% and damage versus bosses by 56%. So that's nice to have. Otherwise, for Prismatic, they're reducing the number of fragment slots provided by Consecration from 3 to 2. Then for the Consecration aspect, they're increasing the fragment slots provided from 2 to 3, specifically on the Solar subclass. Then on Prismatic and Strand, Drenga's Lash, they're increasing the strength of the base Suspend Wave and Abeyant Leap exotic armor Suspend Wave, and the travel distance goes from 20 to 30 meters, with the Suspend Wave travel distance from 30 to 35 meters, so another small buff for it. Then on Consecration, they say Ignition no longer has a plus 20% bonus damage, which makes Ignition damage consistent across the board with other abilities and tuning that they're introducing across classes. Then on the Void Shield Throw, they're increasing projectile tracking strength by 77%, which is huge. And on Arc, Storm's Keep, the benefits no longer stack when standing behind multiple barricades. So they've gone in and specifically tuned that out of the ability. Finally though, for Hunters, on Gambler's Dodge, of course, melee energy return no longer requires dodging near an enemy. On Prismatic, they've reduced the number of fragment slots provided by Ascension from 3 to 2, and Winter Shroud goes from 3 to 2 as well. Then on both Prismatic and Solar, Gunpowder Gamble has reduced self-damage detonation by 60%, and final blows of all kinds now grant Gunpowder Gamble progress instead of just Solar kills. Then on Solar, the On Your Mark aspect allows final blows while at 3 stacks to now make you radiant for a short time, and activating your class ability now gives 1 stack of On Your Mark instead of 3. Then on Arc, for Ascension, it can now activate the following perks. So for armor mods, it's Reaper, Powerful Attraction, Outreach, Distribution, Bomber, and Dynamo. Plus it will also affect the exotic class item and the Goya Falcon's Reserve Overshield. Otherwise, for general all classes changes, they've increased damage versus bosses, mini-bosses, and champions by 15% for Flux, Arc Bolt, Flashbang, and Storm Grenades, as well as the Axion Bolt and Suppressor Grenade, Firebolt and Trip Mine Grenades, and finally, the Rock Grenade from Forerunner. Some final ability tuning here though. For Void and Devour, they're reducing the heal amount from 200 health points to 140, and they say this change is designed to better balance Devour against other healing sources. For Suspend on Strand, they're increasing the base suspend duration from 5 to 6 seconds, and on Stasis, Shatter damage now stuns Overload champions instead of Unstoppable champions. So that's all the ability stuff. Give me your thoughts down below. I'm sure there'll be mixed opinions on what we're hearing. Of course, it's difficult because so many other components are changing in the sandbox that some of this tuning is really centered around those changes. The rework to stats, new mods, set bonuses, whatever it is. So Let me know what you think about that below. Finally though, they talk about reward passes, and they say, with Edge of Fate comes an exciting update to the seasonal pass model. There'll be 4 passes available during Year of Prophecy, and each one will cost 1,000 silver if you buy them as standalone, but they said every rank reward will be available to earn day 1, so no more having to wait for a new act to unlock more ranks. Plus they've adjusted them to feel more rewarding. For one, we've refactored some boosts and added new ones, removing some that were determined to be less than desirable, and the new boosts offer comprehensive bonuses that apply to a wide range of combat, as opposed to narrowly boosting specific seasonal combat. So there's an activity score boost which provides a 15% score bonus in all portal activities when fully unlocked, a prime engram boost that increases the possibility of desirable armor and weapon drops in portable activities, or portal activities, don't know where I got portable from. There's a weekly challenge boost as well, allowing players to complete their various weekly seasonal hub challenges faster, streamlining their access to additional high-value rewards, and finally an XP boost, which has been refactored to apply a 40% bonus to XP when fully unlocked, along with a 20% bonus to Fireteam XP. Secondly, they say, the premium track armor rewards have also been reworked so that players will acquire a full set of both PvE and PvP armor, and the free track will offer 5 pieces split between 2 sets, allowing players to unlock a partial set. And thirdly, they took a pass at the reward allocation to ensure they're providing as much value as possible for players. The allocation of various free rewards has been increased, and players will be able to acquire more cosmetic rewards within the first 100 ranks of the pass. But with a return to 4 passes per year, we've reduced the pass ranks down to 110. And they say that final 10 ranks will be extra special, but I guess we'll see how that plays out. They do add though that the additional 10 ranks are packed with valuable rewards for free and premium players, and require 500,000 XP each to earn, and can only be acquired through gameplay. So there we go guys, that is the TWID. We've had so much information through so many different sources of late, kind of just has your head spinning, so I'm going to let that sink in and give you some thoughts down below later. For the moment though, let us know what you think in the comment section. If you found the video helpful, a rating really does help me on the channel. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.